Hello, Americans. There's General Donahue. I don't know him. I don't know Erica Donahue either. They might have taken my picture near her one time. Her her reported boyfriend and another boyfriend of Heather Hansen reported sharing their girlfriend and their roles with federal evidences crimes, where they say and do things at locations, as collusions also with like a Judge Smith. There's a Christopher Cullen too, increasingly tied to child abusers, leaders of kids with these people. And that's one of the reasons there are proofs that it's a connected military, because they confess they have military. These are people involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with federal evidences crimes and other natures of organized crimes, recorded that his co-defendants and their family members have and have had as collusions. Like there's a house on the side entrance to all the side entrances to Milwoods Park have people who have been planting evidences with former mayors too, and people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people I never had classes with who make confessions. They're stacking each year fake ties, fake nature ties between kids that don't even go to the same campuses, and their rules with mayors. There's a former mayor, Gold, and his daughter is increasingly involved with the Casper family. I never saw him in the campuses. I never had a class with Chet Casper. He's involved with a Pete along Route 3. A Pete, I don't know his last name. And people all along Route 3 have a whole bunch of different countries involved with them. And like my 8th grade English teacher. And then he had me in a summer school class. And both of the people who had in the summer school class with me that were boys, and then there was one Heather Hansen. She was forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to roles that she doesn't even know with them with federal evidences crimes in multiple police departments, and with other people and herself involved with different home break-ins, and their roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases, including with the names next to the World Trade Center the day of the attack, who had collusions with names on all sides of that case, and the court was proven to have had a sequence shift affected from inside the court. And WFSB, Connecticut's channel, CBS News, they attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. As their collusions, they're one of the ones conjunctive to Route 3. Has something to do with that. A police chief, Cintron, is having confessions made because he's a little coward. They won't get on paper. And other retired police chiefs and their families and intimate ties have collusions with the corners of Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Weathersfield, with the police chief, Cintron, and their families and intimate ties, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, and with ones on my street tied to their extended family members involved with that, and the World Trade Center attack at the same time. Connecticut had roles of the World Trade Center attack through all kinds of other stuff. And it's recorded how they're offensively preventing mandated law. Weathersfield police faked me speaking with them and being at the police station as a kid and then as an adult too. And they forced my Saudi friend to collusion with that. Increasingly, they knew her before I did. I didn't even know that. And that's why one of the reasons they can't get on paper. Connecticut's campuses have collusion with the World Trade Center attack. And CNN has roles like pretending again to be against the hate groups. They have their sources. The intelligence community recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have like people with the name Kolvinskis and Mark Violet involved with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, Irish theme, like involved with all kinds of medical corruption at Harvard Hospital next to that campus, with one's intercities involved with predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never had classes with them. They're increasingly planting evidences with intelligence families near me, involved with multiple police departments at the same time, using crime acts intercities where they're switching names and forging names, refusing to get on paper, and they keep stacking more fake paper. Then they present, well, I don't understand the subject. Get them on paper. They put fake conversations with me. That's short words. They have judges and prosecutors and their kids involved, putting fake motives and screening their roles with a whole bunch of different countries. So there's an 8th grade teacher I have named Mr. Neville, who was involved with them interstates with Route 3 and the conjunctions to it and to that, like the state corrections offices. And Facebook has people like with the name Pienza and mayors involved too. But also like with the former mayor Gold and one before them, like tied to a Ruth, who's with a house next to the state education department, is involved with people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And agencies that are, oh, that we have the right to lie, we have the right to be pretend we are that. They have time collusions with the World Trade Center attack terrorists too. Notice how since the World Trade Center attack, everyone's been using the words like extremism and radical. This is acting, but as criminal insidiousness nature, as criminally foreign influenced nature, / hyper criminally foreign influenced. I am not even a lawyer. I'm not even a licensed journalist. One of the reasons I'm not a licensed journalist or a lawyer is because the pathways to all the sciences that are used to show people confessions about how they are abridgments. They have self-value collusion / yes with black people's rights of eyes. For example, explaining that the way the breaching method wants and needs them to, not the way that James Madison declassified to have. See, rather than having experts where the most important things surface, the experts they have it as the breaching method shows them. They need to hide it behind their back because these are styles, nature's needs of logic that are collusions with use of location / s. Everywhere the human species body has a body. That is one of the things it's about, where and how. Replaced is what our founders communicated about how the breaching method reassigned black people's rights of eyes communications, and made it the rules that anyone would be in so much trouble if they didn't sense anybody doing other, appreciating others syntactically or physically, with a whole bunch of different things at once too. So everyone, once they come out of parts of it, in other words, at the same time, they have been blaming other things, others themselves, from what the hyperforeign that caused it, the breaching method itself. Nature itself shows us all those affronts multi-front on all human differences, then further human differences, male, female, black, white, pupils, whites of eyes. Nature's communication. Nature shows us we are a human species body made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And there are birds, fish, there are salamanders, there are all kinds of other species. And they are each a distinct species body made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And what comes with this is demonstration / s of how identity's nature is generating all group differences, or it demonstrates to us that we are using systems abridged from its own. Nature itself reveals the value of the Constitution unabridged. This means addressing the abridgments that are at countries A through Z, without blaming them even when correctly, leaving out the breaching method. Demonstrably, one of the things that's more practical than, what they say for the religious messengers is that they had to leave their communications with cipher to be deciphered, because already the campuses were criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions raw. There are proofs from off them because of the way it is still from off them, but then hyper additionally on off them apparent motivations for collusion / s. Because that's what it is, value as collusion / s. We guys pretend things are debatable that are not. When someone tries to use the hyper evidential, we have black people's rights of eyes. So There's a Donahue family at a side entrance to a Millwoods Park on Route 3. And they have rolls of people tied to next to Fox Connecticut News. And there's a church there that used to be a school. It has rolls of people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and their roles with child abuse. Planting evidences of people with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forced collusion/S roles. A principal being with upskirt pictures, I recorded them involved with worse natures of organized crimes with the kids, and has names involved with the elderly homes. There are proofs there are roles with the veterans too, and or next to it, the difference of guilt too, because the breaching method knew that nature would continually demonstrate to us all those distinct affronts on types of rights as described. You know, in other words, all the descriptions of black and white, when people open their mouths to defend it or to counter it, it's still collusion/S with the differences. Still American history. People can't discern this because you guys have had replaced what James Madison and our founders had declassified for us to appreciate. In other words, and the motivation, though, because that's where we're trying to look like we're smart. In other words, it's you can't understand. George Washington was more probably counter-extorted too. That's why we were supposed to be honest about his extortion, and not leave out James Madison's plan to have him force everyone to. In other words, George Washington wanted us to know too. We're supposed to tell the truth. He had to counter-extort everyone, using James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, plural. The only founder we know the name of is not George Washington, though. A founder is distinct from James Madison's plan forced people to be a part of the Declaration of Independence. And the breaching method forced everyone to hide that. Otherwise, it would be hurt. Because no one was allowed to follow the value of the Constitution unabridged. Its equivalent as nature's demonstrations to us. So in other words, offensively, they're refusing to identify themselves legitimately into branch, and they have been stacking fake things in databases, fake transcripts, collusion/S with all natures of crime scenes and campuses. The Brit Superior Court, Harvard Courts, and the District Court has had collusion/S Connecticut intercities and inter and intra campuses next to them before and after the World Trade Center attack. And they've been using everything that comes before them to hide that. Even collusion/S framing people to bring people before them to lie about their motivations, even. Because the breaching method is increasingly involved with their motivations and with nature's demonstrations about that. That's why you guys have it left out from how it is inseparable from those serious subjects like slavery. And you would have noticed no one wanted roles with such against every human difference. Tactical terror from how nature communicates different. It's showing us it generates all group. It's generating fish. A whole bunch of different individual fish bodies of a species body of fish, of birds, of humanity. Male, female. It's about how the parts of the rest of nature's identity are manifest with it, inseparable from that individual identity of body progression. We could discern such ways, such as how not the other species' bodies, not ours, nor ours, did we invent. Are we the ones generating everything? All exceptions, we're generating things too, to an extent, but it's its way, or it's a negative identity relationship to nature itself, including with criminal insidious natures of positive self-value. Nature wants us to discern that. Nature wants and needs us to discern the difference between criminal insidious natures of peace and hyper peace, so to speak, which it shows us criminal insidious natures of peace to know to discern the difference, to define it, hyperpeace. There's that distinct idea. There is what has generated the other species' bodies distinctly from our own, but also non-distinctly and simultaneously, but also per that which is neither us nor them, but it's all things anyway. It's a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature. So Weathersfield police, when I was a kid and since then, they have roles of predicate acts of facts methods, fake phone transcripts, faked, hid, changed digital evidences, fake motivations for it too. They have women judges played by a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and the detective Samuda, involved also with intelligence from East Hartford, Connecticut, involved at New Britain's Connecticut, Central Connecticut State University, before and after the World Trade Center attack. As roles with people since I was a kid, involved with foreign and domestic military, involved with abuses of grammar school kids, middle school kids, and high school kids multi-front, and other colleges and universities. These are also fire and medical families that are planting evidences at other campuses as a function / S, where they have to hide their actually recorded natures too. That is shown to them. These are names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, interbranch and news, names at the crime scenes next to them, the body dumping spots brought up at the same time, the differences of guilt, use / S, but the breaching methods also involved with them. So they have people named Kerr and DeMorrow involved with a Donahue and others along Route 3, all sides of a religious spot there, with foreign and domestic military, people involved with child abusers, kids years apart, first forest, and as families collusion / S with that. And they'll tell you, but you have to ask them correctly. I never had a word of conversation with Erica Donahue or her parents as one of the ones with the Donahue. In other words, the military has too a bunch of people involved with the name Schedule. They demonstrated to me. I never had a word of conversation with Schedule. They're involved with all kinds of medical corruption with probate court judges and superior court judges with the same house / S. There are also recorded proofs that they have roles with names with the district court and Brian Silver, who's also involved with the New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts before and after the World Trade Center. All sides of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions, including of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members. And in other words, are also, and the lawyer too, Robert Chevalier, the lawyer. But a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act. He has rules with wire crime acts and methods with the news and with Interbranch refusing to get onto paper legitimately because it would bring up how they've been collusions used remotely. And the differences of their guilt, sometimes in some ways, simultaneously, it's them worse, it's other people. And these are increasingly people with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, increasingly involved with organized crimes on my street with people from other areas since I was a kid, as the ones involved with like a Burstein family and one with the name Abruzzi, a Mr. Abruzzi, who was my 5th grade teacher. I only had like 2 times they made a fake exception of him being my 6th grade. I was in 6th grade, I had a different teacher. A Mr. Burstein tried to make a fake exception to put fake things in databases as one of the ones involved with Central Connecticut State University with foreign and domestic military before and after the World Trade Center attack, involved with Saudi attackers per recorded, not just per reported, and to cover it up. And with the court next to it, all sides of that case in the court. So these are people involved in intercity that's also faked for them, and their sources faked for them. The same ones with the cops forging and switching names in the police forms at Central Connecticut State University. Dean Judd and his kid. I never had a word of conversation with either of them. They were influenced to plant evidences with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, foreign and domestic military, before and after the World Trade Center attack with Central Connecticut State University, involved also intercities, and with the state judicial branch offices all along Route 3, conjunctions to it and to that. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. You can't call the police. They already fake and change and hide what's actually recorded over the phone. You can't go to the police and speak with them. They already faked the conversation with me that weren't at all fake ties to me as a kid and now as an adult. So we have to do it here. They're using, oh, you should do it properly. The only three branches of government, they're criminally poor and influence. They're fake. They're using campuses that are filmed 24/7 to make it look like things were recorded that never were. Fake ties, fake nature of ties between people. All along the roads and routes, too. Use/S of that are manifest because of where and how we are, value progression. How they have, this breaching method shows it's like the equivalent of live progressions, but the breaching method shows names on all sides of criminal and civil cases past, and the courts and the intelligence tied to them. Layers of other at the same time. Criminal enterprise, private ones, even when they're not involved with the cases. And psychiatry is tactically delusions raw. You have to understand this relative to James Madison's plan. I'll stand. I'll rise. Who disbelieves? I'm not even a lawyer. I'm not a journalist. That's also recorded proofs. Get me off the fake conversations with CBS, please, to begin with, and their sources. These are also the sources of WTNH involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting with the FBI, with WTNH, all intercities, all along Route 3, though, and conjunctions to it and to that, and how they bring their kids in on their stories and put fake motivations when they have child abusers lead as kids, while they're pretending to be against child abuses to force that at first. That's all recorded. But you guys don't follow mandated law, and they switch names into branch as the ones involved with the foreign, including the World Trade Center attack. Get me the heck off the fake conversations with one of them about the World Trade Center attack, too. And I want a response for what I caught them doing with the principal child abuser and the untimely death rolls intercities that are connected, and the confessions, and the time U/S of it with the weird U/S of one of the houses involved with the home break-ins and untimely death years ago. And people involved with forensics, increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with people involved directly and indirectly on my street from other areas with the former mayors, too. And then they say, oh, look, he's saying bad things about his neighbor. You guys brought this up. You guys are lying about more, but people think is you're leaving out the foreign names involved. You got people from Afghanistan and other countries involved with the Smith family and this Khalil family and others with the Wethersfield town offices. These are judges, prosecutors, their family members, the ones with the name Del Ferra, involved people all along Route 3, too, with probate court judges and their family members, with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, with their educators, too. I didn't have classes with them. I never saw them around campuses. And then they had intimate ties with other probate court judges' family members. And they have, they all those people that, in other words, like a Christopher White, people involved with I don't even know if that's his name. People involved with next to, there's a Mather Street in Hartford, Connecticut. And there's always reported shootings and things there. And it's not far from, I forgot the name of the campus. It's like a public school. It's like a private school. Watkinson. See, a Fred Grisey is involved with a Maiano, a John Maiano, and others on my street, planting evidences, sequence shifts with foreign and domestic intelligence, involved with these police chiefs from Wethersfield retired, and their families and intimate ties, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders on my street, and with the interbranch offices further hyper additionally collusion/S, the state judicial branch offices and the corrections offices. So when Judge Napolitano was with Fox News, I asked them on Facebook for a response because they, in other words, the news just puts fake things and they run away, and they're psychopaths, no, and then they're like want to make, in other words, then they want to have problems with what people look like when they're going into courts and things like that. Oh, because you don't know what I know, because you guys have collusions with each age and nature of campus. You have criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature that could be healed when you use the words of our founders, like founders. I read it. We're supposed to understand why and how The only founder they had the security to let us know the name of is James Madison. And even once he was then a president / chief also, he did not have free speech. And right where George, right where and how James Madison's plan is the only correct answer, it is still replaced. So it needs that not understood by everyone. And it needs collusions with the experts instead using their knowledge of good and evil to get, oh, you don't know that. Meanwhile, that's what the only thing people need to know. Besides the fact that we know we have black people's bites of eyes, we can discern right through. Like, for example, the school book depository at the time and since, and before that, associated with the reported, coverage of and investigations of the assassination of President / Chief Kennedy. There was a school book depository. No one has the sophistication to discern what our founders would have discerned. There are convictions inside with the syntax inside the books at those campuses that are collusion / replacing what our founders communicated, to have communicated for those subjects, as nature itself demonstrates. Nature itself demonstrates boxing, martial arts, and wrestling have a shared grouped identity, because all the sciences share an identity. Everything is showing us the identity that is generating all group differences too. Or it's showing us that we're using systems other than its own. It shows us too when we have used systems other than its own. It wants us to recognize that too. Or if we are going to. And now it's just showing all three at once: negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. And natures as criminal insidiousness, as criminal foreign influence, as tactically criminally foreign influence / tactically hyper criminally foreign influence. Relative to why and to how, we need to have it clear real fast, these real short words that shouldn't be debatable. About that slavery that was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies, roles with even that were. And then America's founders were born. What nature of unity could stand? What nature of independence? What was the breaching method's use of all the guilt, roles, styles, needs, nature, leaving out itself? No. Otherwise, we would have brought this up, because nature does. Nature shows us affronts to Native Americans, colonists, types of Native Americans, types of colonists, male, female, every human difference. This breaching method keeps everyone self-value, collusion / S, pretending integrity as systems that are tactical ulterior from the one that is integrity. That needs a whole bunch of enemies. They needs to value A through Z, having blamed other things, others, ourselves, for things that the breaching method causes and keeps. You guys have collusion self-value with our founders' principle of communications replaced. Where James Madison's plan is the only correct answer, it's still replaced. All pace, not one has traced. Vaccine. Please get them on paper, one name in sequence. Have Judge Napolitano, someone get him to hear. In other words, before he was with Fox News, and since they're hiding and faking and changing what's actually typed to judges, there are proofs. Even when I try to type things out, every single time I try to do it in detail, boom, they wipe it out. That's why I just do sloppy, like, in other words, and they go, oh, we can't do the live stream now. Increasingly, okay, please, thank you.